next week. Sorry? What? What's the page? What's the page number? That. They gave you already. You're sitting over there.
Yeah, I have. I don't know.
Okay. Mid-Zeit, in a few minutes. The brand new Sikha. But you should have gotten also the Chumash. Do you have this from last time?
Maybe.
Last
Yeah.
week?
No,
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 the
from like
beginning,
last
yeah.
year, the beginning
I
of the year.
actually found it like the last period, so.
Okay, good. This will be.
Do you have the sequel from last week by any chance? Someone's asking for a picture of it.
You should. Hold on.
I can get from your class. So it's like this.
Oh, yeah, it's our Marcia, so. It's Marcia, Yusra.
You want last week's.
Please. It doesn't have to be now.
Here's the situation. If I don't give it to you now, you're not gonna get it.
Oh.
This is it. Should be it, right? This is it. Yeah. Okay, does everybody have what they need? I don't remember your name. There's two girls with the same name.
No, you're thinking of Connor.
No, he's right, it's not true.
You're also Chana. You have it? Rivka, I'm a bum. I should have known that, but okay, what are you gonna do? Okay, the sign of the times. It's called aging. Okay, everyone says, don't say it, Rabbi, don't say it, because if you won't, the Rebbe wrote, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote that if you say you don't remember, you won't remember. Never say you don't remember, but got a problem. A lot of problems. Okay, let's go. Okay, people. We're gonna start with this. We're gonna start with this, okay? This is really, it's a compilation of the story of Matan Torah. That's what I did. I combined here the story of Matan Torah from various places in the Chumash. Obviously, a big chunk of it is from yesterday, which was last week. Some of it is actually from our Pasha, Pasha's Mishpatim, and what we're going to be learning today is probably tomorrow's Chitas or Friday's Chitas of this week. There's a little bit from Pasha's Kisisa, and then there's a bunch from Pasha's Vaschan. That's how I compiled it. That's how I prepared it. That's what the stack is. Now, we're learning the stack probably for 2 years. We'll probably learn for 2 years more because there's so much to learn. Because each day is a whole reality. That's how we develop this, right? We're learning the stories of the Chumash through the lens of the Rebbe Sichos. Each day, beginning with Monday, the 1st of Sivan, and Tuesday, the 2nd of Sivan, and Wednesday, the 3rd of Sivan, and Thursday, the 4th of Sivan, and Friday, the 5th of Sivan, each day is a whole ceremony. Different things happen, and there's, of course, various sichos in the Rebbe that support those various things. And we learned a lot. We learned so many different sichos, learned a lot of stuff over the years, but it just takes time. We're holding by Thursday, Friday. It's really Friday, but let's call it Thursday, Friday, because of what's about to happen now. The first day, nothing happened, right? So Chassidus says that was the day of Bittul. Yidden became one. The second day, Tuesday, is the day we became the chosen nation. And the Abish, they gave us the contract to sign. And we agreed to the terms of the contract. So the third day, which was on Wednesday, Moshe reported back to the Abish that the Yidden agreed. And the Abish said, okay, remember that story, make a fence, the Yidden will be outside, you'll be inside, and all of that. And Moshe thought, he came down the mountain and he told the Yidden what the Abish said, and the Yidden said, no deal. Right? They'd say, no, Lila says Malkenu. It actually says the Jewish people said we want to meet the Abish face to face. And Moshe got so excited. Moshe became a forgot that he was a Rebbe, he became a Chassid. So excited that they want to be intimate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Moshe goes up the mountain on the next day, which is of course Thursday morning, the 4th of Sivan, and he tells the Abish that excitedly, no mamutza, they want to meet you face to face. And the Abish says, Moshe, that's a terrible idea. You know what's going to happen? Jewish people who are not prepared for Nevuah become the they're going to plot. And Moshe said, but think about the desire, the very fact that you got so excited. So, because we said this so many times, you can say it in your sleep. Hashem thought it was a terrible idea. Moshe Rabbeinu thought it was a great idea, and the Jews had no idea what they were getting themselves into. So we're given 2 days, according to the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yossi gave them an extra day. 2 days to prepare themselves to become a Navi. To become a Navi takes a lifetime. They had 48 hours. So of course we know how the end of the story played out. They blocked 10 times. And when they finally told Moshe Rabbeinu, you know, of course, the way we tell the story in drama, let's go back to the Abish's original plan. Moshe was so disappointed. Moshe was so, oh, come on. So you died, big deal. I'm not laughing because I think it's cynical. I'm laughing because this is Moshe's thinking. For a person to experience Nevuah and die is worth it, like David ben Avihu. And when the Yidden said we don't want to die yet, and Moshe was, really? Just because of that, you're going to forgo the opportunity of being a Navi. Anyway, the Abish agreed with the Jews. He told them, they're right. This is the story. Friday, Moshe didn't go up the mountain. The Torah was given a Shabbos according to the Gemara. Friday, Moshe did not go up the mountain. What happened on Friday? Moshe Rabbeinu converted the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu gave Gedus. All the laws of Gedus, we learned, this is the Gemara in Masech Yevamis, it's at Rambam, and of course in the Shulchan Aruch. We learn all the halachos of conversion from the ceremonies which took place on Friday, the 5th of Sivan, when Moshe Rabbeinu collectively converted the Jewish people. We've learned a few sichos on this already, several, and they've been hard. They've been really, to prepare these sichos, which is to decide what to read and what to skip, has been particularly challenging for me. I worked very hard each time to figure out how to teach it in a way that I don't give you too much information. Because a lot of these sichos brings 2 opinions, and I'm avoiding the second opinion completely. So we learned that the essence of Gedus, the thing that makes you a Jew, is accepting all the mitzvahs. Nasav and Ishmael. Around that, there are 3 ceremonies. The ceremonies support the Gedus. Without those ceremonies, you don't become a Jew. But that's not what makes you a Jew. What makes you a Jew is Nasav and Ishmael. Or the Lashon Rambam, the So there's the bris, there's the covenant with God, and then there's the shloisha devarim. The bris, the covenant between Yid and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and a Yid, is when a Jew says, I'm going to keep all the mitzvahs, no exceptions, no ifs, ands, or buts. I take them all. Not 612, not 611, not 630 with an asterisk. I take them all. And then with that, you have to have a bris milah. You have to go to the mikveh, and you have to bring a korban. This is what we will learn. But the last sikha, we discovered something interesting, complex and interesting. And what it was that we discussed in the last sikha will now continue in the sikha we're about to start, which is that there was something limited about their conversion. According to Rashi, and we're only learning Rashi, that they were converted the day before they got the Torah. If the Jewish people converted before they got the Torah, the commitment could not be complete. You can't commit to a Torah if you don't know what the Torah is. So the Rebbe therefore holds that the actual conversion of the Jewish people doesn't happen until Shabbos, till the next day, till the 6th of Sivan. Only when the Yidden get all of them, and they understand the Kalas and the Chamuris and the Einshim, the easy ones, the hard ones, the punishments, and so forth. And they got it all, then they're in a position to say Nasiv and Nish in a way which is going to complete the covenant. So the interesting thing is we learn all the halachos of conversion, from the conversion of the Jewish people then, even though their conversion was not whole, their conversion was deficient. Okay? We will now embark on another sikha, which is going to continue in the same vein. This sikha is also going to show us in a very, very sophisticated and rich way, meaning there's going to be a downside, but there's also going to be an upside. That the conversion of the Jewish people before the Torah was given was lacking because they hadn't gotten all the mitzvahs, but that actually can be spun to be a maila as well, as you will see, okay? However, before we learn the sikha, I want to go back to the Chumash, okay? I want to go back to the Chumash. I did this in the beginning of the year. When we started this year, I made this when I started this part of the syllabus, and frequently we go back to it. The school always complains how about making the same copies over. If you turn to the second page, I'm reading the text, okay? I have more copies if you need it.
I have.
The second page says, parenthesis, continued Thursday dash from Pashas Mishpatim in bold. You see the line? This is where we're starting, and I want to explain to you how I prepared this. Any psukim for Pashas Yisrei are in a regular font. Any psukim that any other Pasha, be it Mishpatim or Kisisa or by Chanan, I put in bold. I organized it chronologically, organized it in terms of time. So it's intermittent. You'll have regular type and then you'll have the bold type. If it's bold, it's not in Yisrei. In this case, it's in our Pasha, okay? Now notice that 3.5 psukim in, it says Friday, 5th of Sivan, 5 Sivan, 2448, the collective conversion of the Jewish people. You see that? So this is a narrative which appears in Pashas Mishpatim. The first 3.5 psukim are happening on Thursday, okay, which means this. The same day that Moshe went up the mountain all excited, and he told the Abish that the Jewish people want to become prophets. I think. And the Abish tried to talk Moshe Rabbeinu out of it, and Moshe said, terrible plan. And Moshe said, it's such a great idea. The Lashon HaPosuk in Pashas Ba'aleischa. What do you care if every single Jew is a prophet? You know what Hashem tells Moshe? If they're all prophets, they're going to laugh at you. Moshe says, so? Moshe Rabbeinu's thinking was so chassidish. The idea that everybody becomes a Navi, which is going to weaken him, it didn't even bother him. It didn't cross his mind. Call Hashem Naviim. Every year to become a Navi. Who needs me? Now, Moshe is always going to be necessary because Moshe Rabbeinu is not just another Navi. But Hashem says to Moshe, if they don't become Naviim, they're going to trust you more. Moshe says, who cares about me? Let them become Naviim. And Hashem tells them it's a terrible plan. On that, and Hashem agreed. The Jews wanted to give him, and we all know the end of that story. That same day, Moshe came down the mountains, told the Yidden Chevre, got 48 hours to clean your conscious, your subconscious, your essence, your body, your life, you have to become so pristine, so clean that God is going to rest upon you and your neshama is going to stay in your group. I mean, just one. I want you to understand, if you've been here for the last few years, we spent a half a year learning Sichas HaNevuah. Delicious stuff. It's all online. If you go to this series, the Sichas section, then there's a subsection which is called themes, then the history of the Jewish people, the Sichas. We have a whole series of Sichas on Nevuah. It's mamish gewaldic stuff. But one of the criteria is to be a Navi and a Gibber. Strong person. Only one of a series. What is the meaning of Gibber? According to the Rambam, a person who has been stronger than his Yetzer Hara every time and has never in his life once given into the Yetzer Hara. That's just one requirement, just one. And then there's Chacham, and then there's Anav, then the whole Anav is not mentioned, and the Rambam that we will see on that too. So you imagine what kind of human being you need to be Roy, you should dish Alechem Shechim. Huh?
Benoni.
I don't know.
Benoni.
Beinani, this is not a Beinani, this is a tzaddik. Could you have to be taught in your subconscious, not just in your consciousness. This is not a Beinani, this is a high madrig of tzaddik. Because it's not enough to be Bevara Machshava Di B'mais, you have to be Bevara Seichel Midas. The pneumius of the person has to be intact. It's not posh. Here are a bunch of people who 50 days ago were slaves. And when they were slaves, it says in the Chazal that they were Shakur and Avodah Zarah. They gave into the Yetzer Hara plenty. They have 48 hours to do what took Moshe Rabbeinu a lifetime. And again, this is my drama. Hashem thought it was a terrible idea. Moshe knew exactly what was going to happen. Moshe didn't care. He just thought it was such a wonderful idea that the Yidden wanted to be the video. And of course, the Yidden were naive. They had no concept. They had no concept. On that same day, Moshe Rabbeinu preparing the Yidden for Matan Torah. The same day that the Jews got mitzvahs Prisha. So the Chumash, it says only 3 words. Al Tikshu El Isha. That's actually 4 words. Stay away from your wife. But it doesn't just mean that you shouldn't be physically together. It means purify yourself into the word Prishus. Prishus. Prishus, a parosh, is a person who's removed from everything material. It's a state of holiness. I'm going to give you a radical example of parosh. Okay, now don't take it the wrong way. You go to the Rebbe's oil, yeah. On the Rebbe's oil, there's the names of 3 Rebbe's written together. Our Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe Rashab. Right? It says our Rebbe's name, Chassan, and then he's the son of the Frierdiker Rebbe. On the Frierdiker Rebbe's tombstone, it says the Frierdiker Rebbe's name, and he's the son of the Rebbe Rashab. By our Rebbe, they added 2 words to the Frierdiker Rebbe's word, the same words, except 2 words. By the Rebbe, they added Hagon Ha'olaki, the divine genius, Hagon Ha'olaki, which you don't have with the Frierdiker Rebbe. And I'm assuming that they took this from one of the early museums in Lubavitch, wherever it was. But there's 2 words that you have by the Rebbe Rashab that you don't have in the Frierdiker Rebbe, you don't have by the Rebbe. The 2 words are Chasida or Prisha. Chasida or Prisha. You look at the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe's tombstone. Read the Frierdiker Rebbe's name, and beneath it says the Rebbe Rashab. It's word for word. But by the Rebbe Rashab, they added 2 words that they don't have in the Frierdiker Rebbe, they don't have by the Rebbe. Chasida or Prisha. Chasida, you know what that is. You think you know what it means. The second word, Prisha, that's this word. I'm asking you, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe, not Prushim, only the Rebbe Rashab the Polish. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe's Matzeva, the Rebbe wrote. So how would our Rebbe write about the Frierdiker Rebbe? Wonderful accolades, but the word Polish he doesn't write by his father writes the word Polish. You have to understand that the fact that the word Polish is not by the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe is not like a sudden it's a mile. Why? Because they got in the trenches. The Rebbe Rashab was a Polish, he was removed from the world. The Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe were not removed from the world, they were in the mud with us. So there's 2 sides to it, but the fact of the matter is that the fact that by the previous Rebbe, our Rebbe did not write the word Polish. And the same stone by his father writes the word Polish, it gives you an idea how serious that word is. The Jews had 2 days to achieve that. Think about it. So it didn't work out the plan because it wasn't a realistic plan. It was just, he didn't want it, and Moshe went along. Moshe just thought, forget about all the cheshbonos. Call on Hashem Navi. On that same day, But the Jews were making themselves holy. How do you take 48 hours, clean out your brain, clean out your memory, clean out your subconscious, clean out your heart from all schmutz? Because you're going to need God. He's going to come into you. You're going to experience Ein Sof in your book, which is what Nebuah means. It's described as a vision, but that's what they had. 48 hours. L'shleishis yomim, not just for the third day, not for 3 days, for the third day. Huh? So on that same day, there's other stuff going on. Besides for this, which I don't know how to do, Moshe Rabbeinu was preparing them for the Gators. You wanted to say.
Yeah, what is it got to do with that they got the name from the Rebbe? On the article? Like, it's saying like what, I missed what you said, like why would they only put the names on like each one and not, I can't word it. I'm saying like why is it saying to the preacher on the Rebbe Shah, but then first find Judas on the Rebbe? Did you answer that one then?
I do not understand your question.
Why did it say to the preacher on the Rebbe Shah's Ohel?
I did answer that, but you were so busy thinking the question, you weren't listening. The Rebbe and the Fried, you can never win the trenches. I promise you, they're a Hasidah Frisha. I promise you. I swear to you that Rebbe was close to the parish. And nevertheless, he did it right by his father-in-law. Even though on the very same stone, a few lines down about the father-in-law's father, it says Hasidah. The point is, you have to appreciate how serious a word on the Matzeh is. And the Rebbe Rashab lived a life of removal from the world. He didn't get down into the schmutz. But the Frierdiker Rebbe did. The point that I was trying to bring out is that every year they have to achieve that madregah in 48 hours. Okay, we got to stop with the questions that are digression. It's not important. I'm making a point. Back to the topic. We're going to read the Chumash. And in the Chumash, we're going to see the beginning of this ceremony. Just appreciate that it starts on Thursday afternoon and ends on Friday. On Thursday, Moshe gave them instructions to achieve Prishus in 48 hours. 48 hours to become Roiv and Nevuah. So they went to do that job. I don't know how you do that job. I don't know how you prepare for it. Where do you start? So I say, where do you begin? Where do you begin? Where do you begin? A bunch of things. That's 48 hours. To be so pure, you have to be pure till your essence. The Nevuah doesn't just touch your conscience, but your subconscious. If there's schmutz in the subconscious, like and there's plenty of schmutz in subconscious. Some of it's inherited. It's not even ours. And you didn't have 48 hours to do all of this. I mean, wait, you're busy with the precious, but there's something else we got to do. You have to get ready for the kaput. Let's read. You with me? Well, Meisha Omar and Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei Hashem, go up to God. Ata you, the Aaron and Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, and all the two sons. The Shivim, Mizikne Yisrael, and the 70 elders of the Jewish people, the Ishtach of Yisamerachek, and you should prostrate from a distance. Now, Kinderlach, in Pshute Shal Mikra, we're not talking here about Matan Torah, we're talking about Thursday. This is Thursday afternoon, the day that they were given the instruction for the Prishus. And they have 48 hours, Shabbos, they're going to get their Torah. Hashem says to Moshe, today, you should start approaching the mountain. So Rashi says Moshe got close. Ada went a little bit further, another thing a little further, this came a little further, and the Yidden didn't approach at all. They started approaching the mountain and they bowed. Now, the Pashtus, the Eibishter was not yet on the mountain. The mountain, Hashem came down on the mountain on Shabbos. This is prefatory. This is an anticipation. The Pashtus, this that we're reading here happened on Thursday. The Nigash, Moshe, Lavadei Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu approached the Eibishter himself. Adam was a little bit behind him. Nadav and Avihu were a little bit behind Adam, and the 70 elders were a little bit behind Nadav and Avihu. Even the people did not go up at all, and this all happened the Pashas Thursday afternoon. Now, in my understanding, and I could be wrong, in my understanding, especially according to Rashi holds that Moshe only went up the mountain early in the morning. So whenever you have Hashem speaking to Moshe in the middle of the day, either it was more instructions that he got in the morning, or Hashem spoke to him in the camp. This is happening on Thursday, right? In yesterday we already read. He went up the mountain, He told the Abish that he didn't want to meet him face to face. The Abish tried to explain to him why it's a bad idea, and Moshe insisted, and Hashem said okay, and said mitzvahs Kedusha. Now we find out in Pashas Mishpatim that there were more instructions. Same day. Today, 2 days before the event, you should start preparing yourself for relating to the mountain. Come close and bow. Then it says, Moshe Rabbeinu came. He told the people 2 things. Listen carefully. As called to Hashem, all of Hashem's words, the Eis Kol Mishpatim, and all of the judgments, all the mitzvahs. 2 things. Now, when did Hashem tell these things to Moshe Rabbeinu? When did Hashem tell these 2 things to Moshe Rabbeinu? Number 1, Divrei Hashem. Number 2, Kol Mishpatim. I'm going to assume that he told it to him in the morning. Meaning, when it says over here, Ve'al Moshe Amar Alei, that was also said in the morning. Hashem said to Moshe, this is Thursday. Moshe went up early. And Moshe the Abish talked about Yidden meeting the Abish face to face, becoming prophets, and the mitzvah spirituals. In that same meeting, Hashem says to Moshe, when you go down the mountain, even though I'm going to speak to all the Jews, we're making levels. You're going to be closer, obviously a little farther away, they'll be further, and so on, and you should all approach and bow. And you have to assume that by Matan Torah, this kind of hierarchy, in other words, Shabbos, 2 days later, would repeat itself. But these instructions were given in the morning. In other words, in Pashat Yitzhak. Then it continued. After Moshe and Aaron, another Avihu, and the Shivim Skanim, each one came based on their demarkers, this close or this far from the mountain, and they bowed. They came back into the camp. Moshe gathered all the Jewish people, and he shared with them 2 things. Called Divrei Hashem, all of Hashem's word, and Kol HaMishpatim, all of Hashem's mitzvahs. What are these? We'll find out in a minute. Okay, but this is all happening on Thursday, and I'm going to go with the assumption that all of these instructions were given in the morning, but Moshe was doing a variety of ceremonies. Ceremony was that the big machas would approach the mountain, each one a little closer, a little further, based on their level. Ceremony number 2, he tells all the Jewish people 2 things. Kol Advarim, Kol Divrei Hashem, and Kol HaMishpatim. Okay? Then it says, Vayan Kol Ha'am Kol Echad. The entire nation answered in one voice. Vayemru, they said, quote, Kol Advarim Asher Diber Hashem, all of the words that Hashem spoke. Nasa we're going to do. Now notice that the word Devarim is the same as the word Divrei, but it's not as the same as the word Mishpatim. Moshe told them 2 things. Divrei Hashem and Mishpatim. And they answer, we're going to do the Devarim that the Abish said. Then it says, Moshe, it's called Divrei Hashem. Then Moshe Rabbeinu wrote all the Devarim, all of the words of the Abish. You see? Now when you look at it, you assume that the Divrei Hashem in Pasuk Gimel and the Devarim in Pasuk Gimel and the Divrei Hashem in Pasuk Daled are the same. You'll find out in Rashi that they're not. Okay? Next day, it's in the middle of a pasuk. You see, it's the middle of a pasuk. They went to sleep, or they didn't go to sleep. I don't know what they did that Thursday. I remember they had a fabrengen, they took mashke, and didn't take mashke. I know one thing, they had 48 hours to reach the madrega of Nisha. It's up in the morning, and the Mistama means very early. Friday. At the foot of the mountain, they built the Mizbeach. And 12 matzevas means monuments. The name also Shifti Yitov, the corresponding 12 tribes of Israel. Later on, the Abish Asid matzeva also. You're not allowed to make a matzeva. Because I'll say that we may have obvious a matzeva was a good thing. And later, the Abish made it also. I don't know how to understand it here, it's not important. This is Friday. Moshe sends for the young men of Israel. That means the firstborn. Remember that until the Egel was offered up, the Koyanim were the firstborn. So he calls for the firstborn of the Jewish people. It actually says so. They brought karbonas that are eaten completely by the Abish. Okay, now I just want to point this out because this is fascinating. Non-Jews can bring an oiler. A non-Jew can bring an oiler. A non-Jew can bring an oiler at Eastern Parkway. And like I told you many times, you're not allowed to help him build it, but you can teach him the instructions. You teach a goy how to build a mizbeach. And I don't know. I mean, goy may don't have the name of Tum and Tahara. If how that works, I don't know. A goy can make a carbon any place he wants, but there's one rule. There's a number of rules, but one of the rules about a goy's carbon is him and Hashem do not sit at the same table and eat. It's either God's or it's yours. It's not mixed. When a goy brings a carbon, it's either Hashem's completely or it's not Hashem's at all. Goy can only bring an oil. What is it next? For another club, where everybody shared in the food. Hashem made a little, the Koyanim made a little, and the Yid made a little. And this is really part of what separates Yidden from non-Yidden, that the Eibishter gives us an idea that we share food with the Eibishter. It's a very powerful thing. There's a lot of chassidus on it. A guy can bring a carbon. When a guy brings a carbon, it's exactly what a carbon is meant to mean. It's a sacrifice. You give it away to him, but you don't break bread with God. Finished. You didn't do break bread with God. They share the food. Now, of course, it's wonderful, but it's also very risky. Because when you're sitting at the same table, the Eibishter, you got to be in your best behavior. You have to know how to be in best behavior, yeah? That takes a lot of training. What if you're poorly trained? You're one of these Jews who got 48 hours to become Chassido Pisha. Later on in the Chumash, you see that they got a little too comfortable over there. They started to enjoy the food a little too much. They forgot who was sitting with them at the table. But the idea of a Zevach, of a Shlomim, is a uniquely Jewish idea. It's one of the Rabbanos in the Torah. It's the idea that Ksayochel, a Yid, and the Eibush, share in the same animal. It's part of what Hashem gave Yidden that makes us special in our relationship with Him. La Hashem to God Almighty, and they were all part of it. Both the oilos, which Hashem ate all by himself, and the shlomim, which the Jewish people shared, were from oxen. Now, was there enough meat for all the Jews to get a piece? There would have been thousands and thousands of cows. I don't know. I wasn't there. It's not reported, but at least some of the Yidden ate some of that meat. Then it says, Moshe took half the blood. Half the blood from which carbon? From the oilos or from the shlomim? We don't know. But Yosam Ba'agonis, he put them into a basin, into a bucket. The Chatzi Adam, the other half of the blood, Zorak al Mizbeach, he sprinkled on the Mizbeach. So there's a very interesting Rashi, which I pointed out to you earlier. Rashi asks a weird question. Who divided the blood in half? Half the blood went on Mizbeach, half the blood went in a bucket. Are you sure it's half? Maybe one is more than the next. How do you measure molecules of blood? Huh? How do you know? So Rashi says a malach came and divided it in half. You know why? Because the Torah doesn't generalize. If it would say approximately half the blood, so you take two measuring bowls, you put them side by side, it's the same thing. Okay, it's the same. It's not exact, but the Chumash says half, and when Torah says half, it means half, not a drop more, not a drop less. So that's just how is it possible that Moshe divided the blood exactly in half? And the answer is a malach did it. Okay, half the blood he sprinkled on the mizbeach, and the other half he put in a bucket. Now listen, Vayikach Sefer Abdi. Then Moshe Rabbeinu took the book of the covenant. You listening to me?
Yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu took the book of the covenant. Vayikach Ozyam, and he read to the people the entire book from beginning to the end. Vayemru, and the Jewish people said, everything the Eibush tells us to do. Now they said two words. Nasa we will do, V'nishman we will hear. You with me? You with me?
Yes.
So thank you. I would like to point out that you have four words. Okay? In Pasuk Gimel it says, Vayesapel Amis Kol Divrei Hashem. The next line it says, Kol Advarim Asher Diber Hashem. The line after that it says, V'yichtav Moshe Kol Divrei Hashem. You see that? And now you have Sefer Habris. 4 times there's a reference to Hashem's words. Okay? The first time Moshe is telling it to the Yidden. The third time Moshe is writing it down. The second time, the Yidden are saying to Moshe, we're going to listen. The fourth time Moshe Rabbeinu reads it, and the Jewish people say we're going to follow. But they say 2 words, Nasa v'nishma. What we're going to discover is it's not the same thing. There are actually 2 different concepts that are being represented in, quote, the words that Hashem told Moshe to tell the Yidden, which is what our Sikh is about. Then it says, Moshe takes the blood, he sprinkles it on the Mizbeach. And he said, turn the page, or turn over your stack. This is the blood that the Eibishter has used to make the covenant with you. I'll call on all of these words. Okay? So now, where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Huh? Moshe Rabbeinu sprinkled the blood on the people. I said before on the back, right? He sprinkled it on the people. So Rashi says from the Gemara, Ein hazoyah believe tefillah. Anytime blood is sprinkled on a person, you could assume that before the blood was sprinkled on that person, they went to the mikveh. So we know Nasav and Ishma, that's the covenant. We know the Karban, and we also know going to the mikveh. What about the Bris Milah? The Bris Milah the Jewish people did in Egypt 5, 6, 7 weeks before, because otherwise they couldn't bring the Karban Pesach. Remember that? You see, this is what's going. Now, so this is a ceremony which starts Thursday afternoon and continues Friday morning. You with me? Yeah? Now, we're ready to go to the Sikha. But the Sikha is based on Rashi. So the way we're going to learn the Sikha is as follows. You all have a copy, right? You all have a copy? That's good. If you look at your copy, you'll see on the first page, there's very, very little underlined. You will notice that there are things that are numbered 1 through 3. There's a 1, 2, and a 3. We're going to be learning in the order of that 1, 2, 3. You see it?
Yeah.
Where's my original?
Wait, can I ask a question?
At your own risk.
We were saying based on the last Sikha that the Rebbe said that their conversion was incomplete. They can't accept the Torah before it's given to them.
Correct.
But now we're sick of it, like, it's, I mean, maybe I guess we'll explain it, like, it sounds like Moshe said, told everything, he read Hashem, he read the whole Sefer of Bris to them, so like, but if they accept it fully then, like.
What is the Sefer object?
Okay.
Welcome to the Sikha.
Okay.
Welcome to the Sikha. This Sikha is actually going to further argue that there was something wrong with the conversion.
Okay.
That's the point of the Sikha. But at the end of it, I was going to actually say, in one way, it's better. It's better. You know why it's better? Because it's more human. More them and less God. So look inside, okay? Number 1. Now, if you want to hold on to both pages, you'll realize that 1, 2, and 3 is in the order of the Chumash. Number 1 appears in the Chumash first. Number 2 appears in the Chumash second. Number 3 appears in the Chumash third. But when the Rebbe builds the Sikha, he presents them in this order. Number 1 reads, Moshe Rabbeinu came, and this is Thursday afternoon, Kinderlach. He tells you all of Hashem's words. Now, what are all of Hashem's words? But Rashi types the dart. Rashi says, it's called Divrei Hashem. What do the word Hashem mean? You're listening? He told them the ceremonies they need to get the Torah. Prisha, how to separate themselves from it. How to become Chasido Prisha. And at the same time, to remember that they're not allowed to cook to the mountain. The Prisha, because Hashem is actually going to speak to them, they're going to become the Nevi'im. And the Agbola, because still there's a difference between Moshe and Adam, the Nevi'u, the Shivim Skanim, and Kala, like the Pasuk said earlier. So in this Pasuk, which is Pasuk Gimel, Divrei Hashem means the instructions for the ceremonies they were about to embark upon. Okay, to give you a Lumdish way to say it, to give you a Shivish way to say it, we have a rule. When Hashem gives us a mitzvah and says, do this one time and never do it again, it doesn't count in the meaning Sayyat. It's not in number 613. Because the 613 mitzvahs have to be, at least in theory, forever. Mitzvah Prisha, mitzvah Gbala, not mitzvahs. Why? Because that once Hashem was going to meet the entire Jewish nation on one occasion. It was never going to happen again. The Chassidus always believes that even after Mashiach comes, Hashem is not giving them the Torah a second time. So these mitzvahs, make yourself holy and put up fences because you're going to meet God intimately. It's going to be overwhelming. It's not a mitzvah because it was given one time. That's how you read it. Number 2. And this is Pasuk Dalet, the next Pasuk. You with me? This happens. On Thursday also, this is the continuation of Thursday, it's still Thursday, the beginning of Pasadalah. Vayichtei Moshe kol divrei Hashem. You with me?
Yeah.
Moshe Rabbeinu wrote all of Hashem's words. For those of you who are visitors, we only read the underline. Only what's underlined. That's how you keep track, okay? Mibereshis v'Matan Torah. He wrote the biblical text from Genesis, from the beginning of creation, until the story of the giving of the Torah, the whole Bereshis and Noach. All the stories of the Chumash, he wrote them, and the Rebbe is going to say later, he wrote them exactly as we have them in our Sefer Torah until now. So he wrote the whole Bereshis, Pasha Shmois, Pasha Be'era, Pasha Boy. I don't know how many mitzvahs he wrote, Pasha Boy, Pasha Beshalach, the beginning of Pasha Yisrael. Whatever stories had already occurred, he recorded. And then it says, because of mitzvah and it's tavu b'morah, he also wrote down the mitzvah that Jewish people got to know. Now, girls, you know this, because we've talked about it multiple times. The story of mitzvahs is dynamic, according to the Rambam. In Hilchos Melachim, in the beginning of Perek Tes, the Rambam begins talking about the Sheva mitzvah Nenech with a background of Torah. And he says, remember this, I told you last week and 2 weeks ago. The Sheish mitzvahs, Nestava, Adam, Rishon, Adam was given only 6 mitzvahs. Why wasn't he given 7? Because Avim and Achai, being cruel to animals, was not a separate mitzvah. Because before the Mabul, killing an animal was the same thing as killing a person. You were not allowed to eat meat. Just vegetation. So the Chumash Rashi invitation. So he didn't have a mitzvah and Achai because Avim and Achai was part of the Tzicha. Killing an animal, the same thing as killing a person. Noach came along, Hashem gave him the 7th mitzvah, Avim and Achai. Because after the Mabul, whatever the reasons are, there's a bunch of opinions in the Shonim. Hashem allowed us to kill animals and eat meat. But he immediately gave instructions that we're not allowed to do it cruelly. That's the 7th. Abraham came along and he did mitzvahs, b'ris milah. He was masakin to the shach. It's all the Rambam. Yitzchak came along and Hashem gave mitzvah of Meiser and he was masakin to the mincha. Yaakov came along and the Eibush gave the mitzvah of Gidan Nasha. They now eat the sciatic nerve and masakin to us. Then Yid went to Mitzrayim. Amram in Egypt, that Moshe Rabbeinu's father, gave them more mitzvahs. When they left Egypt in Mora, they got additional mitzvahs. And then Moshe Rabbeinu came. The Lashon Rambam is Hushlama HaTorah Al Yodeh. The Torah became whole through Moshe. So the language of the Rambam lends itself to the idea that Torah was given in pieces over time, but only to a certain point. After Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no more Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu had 630 mitzvahs, and after that, there's no more. But before Moshe Rabbeinu was given piece by piece, so when Yidden left Egypt, they had at least 10 mitzvahs. They had the Sheva mitzvah Nenech, they had Bris Milah, they had Maisis, they had Yidden if I'm counting correct. And maybe they had other mitzvahs Amram gave. In Mara, maybe she gave them additional mitzvahs. There's 2 different Rashis, but he gave them the mitzvah of Paraduma. He gave them the mitzvah of Kibbutz Avim. He gave them the mitzvah of dinim, of having a court system. And there's one more. Big shot, I'm not sure. But the mitzvah was given them in pieces. All of this is written in Sefer HaGis. Moshe Rabbeinu writes a book which is called the Book of the Covenant. The Book of the Covenant has 2 parts. Number 1, the history of the world from the beginning till now. And of course, if you've been in these classes, it's not the history of the world. It's the history of the purpose of the world, right? The Torah records every story which touches on why they made the world, not what he created, including the day of flood and including the Bible. Moshe made all those stories down. And then he gave them whatever mitzvahs they already had in Torah, including the Sheva mitzvah Menech. And again, we have to assume that he gave them this Nila, Maiser, Gidan Asher, and whatever other mitzvahs they got until that point. Okay? Now go to number 3, which is on page 139. At your office. Don't be afraid of it. I really not with you.
Whatever Abe did him in Meiser, they got these mitzvahs from Abraham and Yaakov.
So from Abraham, they got his meeting. From Yitzchak they got Ma'aseh, they give a tithe of their wealth, and from Yaakov they got Gidanosh. Kibbutz of Abe and Shabbos, it's almost Kibbutz of Abe, Shabbos, Paraduma, and Dinim, they got it more. So they had a whole bunch of mitzvahs. Now you have to understand, Dinim is basically all of Chesed Mishpat, all of Jewish business laws, the written Dinim, which include the laws of an oath, and the laws of witnesses, the laws of judges. It's a lot of stuff. Dinim basically means all of Jewish business law. Some of the dimension of Judaism, which we have in common with Goyim, which is to keep a legal system, they got before. Moshe wrote it all down in a book. And he named that book Sefer HaBrit. Wouldn't we love to get a hold of an original copy?
Want to get everything else?
It's out of print.
So how many years?
For 3,300, about 40 years. Exact, any counting number, exactly it's been 100 years. Where is that Sefer? Number 3. Vayikach Sefer HaBrit. Now you must understand, girls. He wrote the Sefer HaBrit on Thursday afternoon. He read the Sefer HaBrit Friday morning. So the same book he had written the day before, that Rashi says entails 2 basic things: the story of the Chumash from Bereshit till now, and all the mitzvahs that have been collected, beginning with 6 of Adam and 1 from Noach and 1 or 2 from Abraham and 1 or 2 from Yitzchak, because they had also Tefillah Shachar, Tefillah Mincha, Tefillah Arbis, and 1 or 2 from Yankov Avinu, and then in Amram gave them 1 mitzvah, and then in Mother they got 1 mitzvah. All of it is written in the book. The next day, which is Friday, Moshe reads the entire book beginning. It takes time. If you want to read the whole Sefer Bereshit, you need an hour and a half. It's a lot of words. Vayikra ba'adnei ha'am, and he read in the ears of the people, says Rashi, Bereshit v'ad matan Torah, means from Bereshit until the story of the giving of the Torah, which is someplace in the beginning of Yisrael. Or mitzvahs and estavel b'mara, the mitzvahs they received in Mara. And again, even though Rashi says mitzvahs and estavel b'mara, it means all of the mitzvahs they had. The Sheva mitzvah more included the mitzvahs they had. That's how we understand. So 2 is he's writing it, and 3 is he's reading it.
Oh.
In your text, I put numbers 1, 2, and 3. 2, he wrote it. He wrote it on Thursday afternoon. 3, what he wrote, he read. And Rashi says it's the same thing. You must understand that Rishonim all going crazy. What's this book? What's this book of the covenant? There's absolutely no indication what it is. Rashi tells you what it is. 2 things. The entire Chumash from Bereshit till now, and all the mitzvahs they were given. It says the mitzvah Tabel B'mara, but I think it means both of the mitzvahs Tabel B'mara. Maybe I'm overstating it, but that's how I remember it. You'll see it on the next page.
Where's the book?
Out of print. Out of print.
Yes.
Madura Kama. But the Rishonim disagree. There's so many opinions what to say for Hebrew. What's important to appreciate is that in these few psukim that we read, there's 2 sets of instructions. The first set of instructions is local. The first set of instructions is simply saying what's going to happen now. Make yourself holy. Hashem's going to talk to you. But put up fences. Even though you're all going to become prophets and Hashem will talk to all of you, Adon is going to be closer, another will be a little bit further away, there's a Canaan even further, you're going to be even further. So there's like a sort of a blend between staying away and getting close. So the Jewish people say, no, we're going to be. And there's something else. Moshe writes down whatever was available to them, that's a part of what will become the Jewish paradigm. He writes it down. And he called it the Book of the Covenant. The history of the world as it's connected to the world purpose, nominations till yesterday. And whatever mitzvahs they had, that's what he wrote. And the next morning he read it to them. And they said, Nasa and Mishra. 2 things. They didn't say, we'll do, and we will hear. Both. Nasa, we'll do, and we will hear. And then there was the conversion. They brought Karbonis, they even ate with God. They went to the mikveh, they had the blood sprinkled on them, so the conversion was complete. Are we good? Any questions or comments? Okay, come back in 5. Let's try to make 5 minutes into 300 seconds. That's possible. Yes? Okay. If you bring me a cold water, I'll drink it. Thank you. I'm sorry, I was a bit, it's not nice. It's not all right, and I'm sorry. Okay, 5 minutes, пожалуйста. 5 minutes, please. Huh? Paraduma, Shabbos, people of aim and dinim, that means court, making laws.
Is this after they,
No, right after the Amendment was signed, it's a few weeks early.
I didn't want to ask you in class, what was Mara again?
Laura was a place, remember they took me spoiled by the war, by the sea,
Yeah.
and Moshe Rabbeinu rushed them?
Yeah,
The place that they came to was when the water was bitter. And it says in the pasuk that they got mitzvahs. Oh, so you're there, who made it. Oh, no, I just want to say, keep working. Hey, Lavnei Kidevich, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think it's ready more than 5 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, no, no. Might be the longest we're going to second.
Yeah, that's quite long, yeah. God's relationship with dogs is so interesting. In today's chitas, it says that you have to give meat that you can't eat to the dog as a payment because they didn't mark. So dogs are very important. What does Rashi say?
What about cats?
Dogs. Hakelev nichbad mimenu. But all over the Chazal and the Tanakh, the dog is treated like such a dog. It's so strange. It's not strange. We're gonna start. What's your first name?
Cecil.
Zissel. It's such a good name. How do I not remember? Zissel. Zissel. How? Okay, so go on. Well done. I can't remember her name. Chav I never forget. Chav I never. But Zissel every week I said her Mindel and Indel. I try them all.
That's like, oh, Rachel?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Rachel.
Rachel?
And Shane.
I love that name, Rachel.
Okay. Let's go. So girls, we're ready to start, yes? Here we go.
Yes.
We're gonna go to the next page. Go to page 140. Okay? Now again, you know how we do this. I read only the underline. Bottom of the first column, page 40. You have it? Parshezu Nemra Kedem Aseret. The story that we're reading in Mishpat, which is this week's Chitas, and we're going to learn it on Friday, which describes Hashem telling Moshe that they should come forward and bow. Moshe the Shus Liat, Moshe has his own fence, Aaron has his own fence, Nadav had their own fence, and the elders have their own fence, and the Gidden outside all the fences. It's sort of a compromise. Even though they're all going to become Nevi'im, they're all going to be in a different space, and they actually ceremoniously walked forward and bowed. They went to the place that they were going to be. That's how I'm understanding it. 2 days hence, when the Abish would give the Torah, each one went on that Thursday to the place that they'd be allowed to go, and they bowed. Then they came back. And what happened after that? Moshe Rabbeinu told them all of Hashem's words. What do they mean in this case? Let's read right. The beginning of the narrative, which you and I just read inside in our first class of today, on that Thursday, which was the 4th of Sivan in the afternoon, Hashem told Moshe to come up the mountain. Now again, if you agree with me that Moshe only went up in the morning, and you agree with me further that Hashem spoke to Moshe only on the mountain, so Hashem gave him those instructions in the morning. Sometime in the afternoon, okay, gather around, in the middle of the Precious, 48 hours of Precious, we got to do some other stuff. First of all, we're going to ceremoniously divide us up into levels. Moshe is the highest level, Aaron is the second level, Nadav is the third level, the Scanim the fourth level, the rest of the Jews are the fifth level. So even though Hashem is going to give them all Nevuah, there's going to be distances separating them when it comes to the mountain, and they should bow. What does this mean? But now it's Sivan, the 4th of Sivan, Emma the Alei. Hashem tells Moshe that the Jews should approach the mountain, each one on his own level. Let's say in other words, as Oich der Vayichta is Moshe, what Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. which is numbers 2 and 3 in your text, what's called the Sefer Abris, the Book of the Covenant, is given by Yem Dal happen on Wednesday. On andere Sachen, the rest of that story, wie bei jedem Mizbeach of the Mizbeach, seinen Folge kommen in Hebesiven happened the next day, which was Friday. So in Parshas Mishpatim, you have the end of Thursday and the all of Friday. The end of Thursday, Hashem says to Moshe, while the Jews are doing Perishus, let them also do these other ceremonies. And on Friday, they will convert. Now, next underlying girls, page 140, second column, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. Loit Rashi. When you read in Rashi that Hashem told all the Jewish people, Etz kol divrei Hashem kanal, all the words of the Eibishter, and the Jews said Nasa, just one word, says the Rebbe is mitzvah prisha v'adbon. It's the mitzvah to become holy and to put up fences. In other words, even though becoming holy means that kol am Hashem neviyim, Hashem was going to speak to every single Jew, still they were levels. But prisha means make yourself holy, Hagbola means know your place. And they're divided up into 5 levels: Moshe, Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, 70 elders, and everybody else.
It's Rocky that says this?
Yep. Well, the Chumash speaks about Moshe and Aaron, Nadav and Avihu in this Canaan, but yes, that should explain. Then it says in the next puzzle that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it down. Hello? When he wrote it down, there's Kol HaMishpatim, all the judgments, says Rashi. See, here it says the other word. The 7 commandments that the people of Noach were given. The Shabbos, those are the 4 mitzvahs. Shabbos, Kibbutz Avim, Paraduma, V'din, and all of the business laws. Shenitnu lahem b'mara, which was given to them in the place called Mara. Does anybody have a Chumash place? Achitas? You mind?
It's Shayna's, but I'm sure she won't.
I have Hayim.
No, I need a Chumash. Where is this Rashi? That's what I don't understand. The 2 Rashi that we read both say from Bereshit to Matan Torah and the mitzvahs of Mora. It doesn't mention Sheva mitzvahs. Where are these words, Sheva mitzvahs? Okay, I made a big mistake. Do you have this?
Yeah.
Yeah, open up the second page. I'll read from the beginning quickly, okay? Moshe Amar, and Moshe Hashem said to Moshe, Alei Hashem, come up the mountain. After you, Aaron, your brother Aaron, your nephew, the Shiva Medikni Yisrael with 70 elders, Vishtach Alisa, and they bow from a distance, and Rashi explains they were not all in the same place. Moshe was closer to them. But Nigash Moshe Lavade, Moshe approaches himself, Al Hashem to God Almighty, Behaim Le'agoshu, they didn't approach completely different approach. Partially, even the Jewish people didn't approach him. So again, even though they're all becoming Nevi'im, there is also such a thing as division. Yahweh Moshe Rabbeinu comes, the Yisapel La'avi tells the people for liberty Hashem all the words of Hashem. The Ace Kol HaMishpat, you know those words? Kol Divrei Hashem means Pisha V'Agbala. Kol HaMishpatim says Rashi, Sheva Mit David Meneach, Shabbos, it was an aim for Adu, but I forgot that this is what Chol Mishpat means. So on Thursday, when Moshe gathered the Jewish people together, he essentially told them three things. The first mention of Divrei Hashem includes the rules that they need for the upcoming ceremony, all the Torah from Bereshit till now, and all the mitzvahs they had until now, and included in all the mitzvahs, the Shabbat mitzvahs Menech. And again, we're going to just assume that this also means the mitzvah that Abraham had, which is Milah, the mitzvah Yitzchak had, which is Ma'aseh, and which Yankov had, which is Yidanosha, like the Rambam says, unless you're going to say that Rashi argues with the Rambam, and then the mitzvah they got in mind. So Moshe Rabbeinu basically said, this is what we have so far. This is what we have so far. Number one, this is how we're going to get ready. Number two, this is the title we have so far, which consists of the stories and the mitzvah. Then it says he wrote in the book, right? When he wrote in the book, he didn't write all three things. He only wrote two things. The Torah, the stories of the Torah from Bereshit till now, and the mitzvahs. He didn't write the mitzvah pictures like those, because those are not for always. They're just for them. You with me? Mm-hmm. So this is what Rashi wrote. So there's two things here. When Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to get ready for Har Sinai, they say Nasi. Then Moshe writes down in a book, which we're going to call Sefer HaBris according to Rashi, the story of the Chumash till yesterday, and the mitzvahs they had until then, which later on he says it means mitzvahs in Sabbath Ramada, but the Pashas it also means the Shabbat mitzvahs or whatever other Yiddishkeit they had, mitzvahs they had. And the next day he read from that book. When he read from that book, the Yidden said Nasa Vidi. We'll see later on in the Sikha why they say both of those things. So Nasa corresponds to one thing, and Nishma corresponds to the other. Yiddishkeit was split in two parts: stories of the Chumash and halachas of the Chumash. For one they say Nasa, and for other they say Nishma. All because it was before Mount David. That's all part of the Chesed. So let's read. Page 141, please. In Yonei Funabis, all of us have a concept of what a covenant is. A covenant is to verstärken den Kisha v'chibur, to strengthen the bond and the connection between those individuals who are collaborating in the covenant. Now, most times you would write these words, you would say, there should be mention between these people who are participating in the covenant. But the Rebbe can't say that here. Why? Because the covenant is being made between Hashem and us. So instead of saying between people, he says between those entities, between those principles, the Eibishter and the Jewish. Now, of course, we talked about this a lot. When two people get together and they like each other, usually it's not each other that they like, it's a common interest. If you like dance and I like dance, so we're friends. If I lose interest in dance and you retain your interest in dance, our friendship dissipates. Don't break it, but it goes away. Why? Because our friendship was originally conditional, like the lashon of the Mishnah. Love based on an entity. The thing that brings you and me together goes away, the love ends. So what happens if you and another person come together because of a common interest? Doesn't matter what it is. And then that common interest goes away. Does the friendship end? Yes. Unless you make a covenant. And the covenant is basically a blood oath. Say to each other, what brought us together is this and this. But our friendship is going to be stronger than this that brought us together in the first place. Called Ava She'ena Tluya B'Davar, unconditional love. So the Jews and Hashem have a relationship that's conditional. That conditional love is now going to be enhanced by a bris. And there's a book called Sefer HaBris, the book that represents that covenant. And Moshe Rabbeinu, the day before he goes up on the mountain and gets saved from the Eibishter on Shabbos, reads them the book of the covenant. What is this covenant saying? This covenant is saying by its very existence, Yidden and Hashem have a relationship that's conditional, and the covenant is representing the fact that it's becoming supra-conditional, beyond any condition. You know what we call it nowadays? We call it nowadays Yiddish. Conversion means a bond between a human being and a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which exceeds any kind of condition. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. What I tell you, Gators is like the mafia. You can get in, but you can't get out. That's a covenant. A covenant means maybe I liked you because I share your interest, but when we make a covenant, we're transcending the interest, which is the basis for the love, and now it becomes unconditional. So Moshe Rabbeinu wrote a book that's called the Book of the Covenant, the book that represents that the bonding with Yidden and Hashem is going to be beyond limit, beyond reason. And the next day he reads it to them. Oh,
He writes them twice. He writes to them Thursday, then he wrote it down, and then he wrote Friday.
so on Thursday he wrote it, and on Friday he read it. Correct. During the ceremony of conversion, which takes place on Friday, he reads it.
Didn't he also read it Thursday, like how you sat there on the branch?
That was the beginning. So he came down, he repeated Hashem's words. That included three things. Mitzvah Pri Shabbat Bala, the story of the Chumash to Yisrael, and then the mitzvah to Bala. Right? Later that day, when he wrote it down, he didn't write down the first point. Because the first point is a temporary mitzvah, just for that point in time. But the second and third, he did write down. And the next day, he read it to them. Okay. Der Bris is given Parman. This covenant, which is being accomplished, ostensibly, most importantly, by the Yidden say Nasav and Ishma, as we learned in the previous Sikha. The previous Sikha that we learned said what? What makes you a Jew is agreeing to serve him. But what makes that agreement binding, what makes that agreement whole, is that around that agreement you have three ceremonies. Number one, a Bris Milah, number two, Mikvah, number three, covenant. But they support the covenant. The covenant itself is the Nasav and Ishma. The Jews are entering into a covenant with Hashem, which means they're entering into a binding relationship with the Eibusher, which exceeds logic and reason. So Moshe writes a book for the covenant. And then he reads that book to them, and then he sends them over to the mikveh. They have blood sprinkled on them. They table the mikveh. They say Nasav and Ishma. Now they're converted. Does it ever remember all of this happened before Hashem gave the Torah? If you don't have the whole Torah, you can't make a full commitment, which means that their conversion was deficient. But it was still very important. And we learn all the laws of conversion from their conversion, notwithstanding that their conversion was deficient. Let's read. The Bris is given Farmat and Torah. This covenant happens when Hashem gives it the Torah. A bracha. Invented brachas. According to the Gemara Zavra, according to the Alter Rebbe Bereid, Angie can't say it David. But for sure not Moshe. Why did David invent brachas? Because people were dying. Every day, hundreds of Jews were dying. Hundreds of Jews. So David HaMelech needed to find a way to stop the Mageta. He made a takana, everyone to say 100 brachas, and the Mageta stopped. But the citizen says Moshe made the takana, but didn't actually make the brachas. Brachas that we have are mostly from the Anglican side. All brachas, with the exception maybe of a bit of benching, maybe ben satera or maybe derabon. There's no derabon yet. There isn't even a deraisa yet. They're not making brachas exactly. Because Hamazon is Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the first bracha, Yeshua ben wrote the second bracha, and then David and Shlomo wrote the third bracha. But what does that mean? They wrote the nusach that we have.
The Book of Covenant, it exists or it was lost?
I've never seen it.
No.
At least you know what's written in it. Yeah. Look at other Mepharshim and you get so confused. Rashi tells when Hashem wrote it. No. Chumash is the Torah. The Torah hasn't been given yet. They're gonna get the Torah the next day. They're writing a book to prepare them to receive the Torah. In this book, which they wrote before they got the Torah, the book of the covenant, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote from the beginning of the Chumash till where they were holding that part, and the mitzvah the Torah. That's it. And the next day you read it all. The second page 141, second paragraph. Okay, their bris is given Parmat and Torah. This covenant, of course, happened before the Torah was given, and therefore, is their bris. This covenant is that accomplishes is through their bris. Oy und it's the covenant which is accomplished with and through the inyanim of the Eibush that the Yeb and the Yidden Farmat and David. You cannot make a covenant for something you don't have yet. So the covenant is based on what they have already. And the covenant is based on what they have already to set up what they're going to get later. They're not going to get till the next day. Or befrat especially, the welche can start and be is those things which can make the covenant extra strong. But appreciate the fact that Moshe wrote, and then Moshe read a book of the covenant for a Yiddishkeit, which they were not going to get till the next day. So the book of the covenant could not be the Yiddishkeit that they get the next day, because they didn't have it yet. The book of the covenant can only be something which is preparing us for the Torah and mitzvahs, which we're going to get the next day. What did he write in that book? Whatever they had until then. Amongst the things they had until then are such things which bind us very strongly. For example, the Koyach Mas Pigel Yam, one of the things written in that covenant that the Eibush created the world. What is the fact that the Eibush created the world prove? Anybody have a working rate of 5%?
He runs the world.
That it belongs to him. Right? Koyach Mas, so he's not with the power of his action, he goes off people. So by us learning that the world belongs to Hashem, it kind of becomes obvious that we should do what he says. It's his word. From Bereshit which is one of the many questions. Und der Bris is given this covenant was als Hachona, Hagdamas, about their preparation to Matthew. It's interesting, it says okay, it's Bereshit. To say it in the language which we sort of become accustomed to, okay? Moshe is converting the Jewish people. But there's something flawed about the conversion. Why? Because you cannot convert unless you accept all mitzvahs. You can't accept all mitzvahs, you haven't gotten them yet. And they hadn't gotten them yet. So Moshe Rabbeinu is converting it with the best that they have. The best that they have is the Torah from Bereshit until this point, whatever this point is, and the few mitzvahs that they gave Noach, and the few mitzvahs they gave others that they had until that. That's it. What they can do. Correct? But in that section, there's some pretty powerful messages. For example, the simple message that the Eibush created the world. The message the Eibush created the world is mighty important because the message of the Eibush created the world makes the Eibush the balabas of it. You understand? So they're doing the best they can. Moshe is doing the best they can, but we're going to see that the best they can isn't good enough, but this is the best they can do. I just want to throw in a little titillation, if you will. I teach you Siddur and Sichos, right? Sichos class, let's say, takes me an hour and a half to prepare Siddur. Siddur class takes me 2 or 3 hours to prepare class. So every Wednesday morning, I got up very early today, and I didn't work on the Sichos. I'm working on Baruch She'amar. I'm sort of getting us ready before we finish these Sichos. So I learned today a very interesting sefer called the Sefer HaMincha that explains Baruch She'amar. I'm going to teach it to you. It's so delicious. But what he does is he doesn't explain Baruch She'amar as the 10 utterances of creation or all the other exotic things we learned about when we did Baruch She'amar round 1. He says that Baruch She'amar is a blessing which teaches us all of our core beliefs. And he has a beautiful list. And the first one is that God created the world. Baruch She'amar v'haya olam, God created the world. And he insists Hashem created the world from nothing. Acharei had lived nothing into something. And he explained that by saying that Hashem created the world from nothing into something, we're automatically saying that he's creating it every second, but he doesn't time it. If Hashem is creating the world from some kind of primordial matter that always existed, then he can simply do it once and leave it alone. But if Hashem is creating the matter itself of nothing into something, he has to do it every second. This is the Taich Koyach Masav Yigid Yamet. By Hashem describing the creation account, he's telling us how powerful it is. You with me? I'll tell you something also not relevant, but so interesting. In my yeshiva, Achet Mimim, this morning is a ski trip. The ski trip, anybody who did, I don't know whether they learned a mind by heart, a whole bunch of rules, a bunch of stuff. But all the boys who didn't do the ski trip are yeshiva today. So I walked into a room. In one room, the guys are dad and ready to go skiing. The other room, the people are sitting shiva for missing the ski trip. So I had to be menachem of all those who were sitting shiva. So what I did was, no, I didn't. They were actually in a pretty good mood. Most of the guys said, listen, the mitzvah was too hard. Half the school is going, I think. I thought it was just, it's only 3 guys are coming this morning. I must have had 15 or 20 people in the room. So I told them, as part of the Nicham Avelim, they could ask questions. Normally, do Q&A, they read on the paper, so it's anonymous. Here, they had to speak up, so that made it very hard. It took a while, but one guy right away asked me a question. And the question was, how do we know when we read a story in the Chumash if it's literal or it's an allegory? It's a really wonderful question. When do we say that the stories in the Torah literally happened the way they're described, and when do we say that it didn't happen this way? Mamish, it's a mush. So I got into a whole conversation with this kid, and we went on the topic. We're supposed to say now, blah, 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 blah. I haven't done that in a while. And amongst issues that came up was different Rishonim, different theologians, different philosophers. Like, for example, the Rambam. There's a famous Rambam where the Rambam says a malach cannot come into a body. An angel cannot be in a physical body. On this basis, the Rambam has some very radical positions. Like the story of the Malachim coming to heal Avraham Avinu and going to Sodom. According to the Rambam, the whole thing was in the mood. Because the malach came into a body, so it couldn't have happened. Literally, it happened in a vision. In Parshas Vayishlach, Yaakov Avinu has a wrestle with a malach. Remember that story? According to the Rambam, Yaakov had a dream of a wrestle, and he woke up with a limp. That's what I said. He dreamed, he had a vision in his sleep that he's fighting with a malach, and he woke up with a limp. There was no malach. I told this to the kids in the room, almost blew up. The guy got very nervous. I told them that there are a lot of people who hold, and the Rambam holds this way because the Rambam doesn't believe in miracles so much. Yeah, Hashem can manipulate nature, but nature is a real thing, A lot of from Jews who insist that the big miracle described in the Torah, if you believe that, you're a fool. People say these big grandiose statements. The truth of the matter is that there's much of the misunderstanding saying that the Rambam doesn't say these things didn't happen because the miracles are too big. The Rambam didn't happen because it's about angels. Angels have a limitation, not God. And this makes me crazy when all the people who say that this can't be true because, like for example, the Rambam holds that eternal life happens with the neshama without the guf. We hold eternal life as the neshama b'guf. The Rambam eternal life is neshama without the guf. Right? Why? If you ask the modern Orthodox Jews, they'll say, because nobody can live forever. Well, you look it up in the Rambam doesn't say that. The Rambam doesn't say the eternal life is not in the body because bodies can't live forever. The Rambam, the eternal life in the body, because if you're not going to eat, and you're not going to sleep, and you're not going to get married, and you're not going to be born, you're not going to die, you don't need a body. That's what the Rambam said. But they hear it with their own bias. What's their bias? You believe in miracles? You're such a simple... It's so dumb. Smart people believe in nature. Okay, it can be manipulated a little, but these radical miracles that they Hashtanim believe in, we're too smart for that. So I told them that people read into the Rambam that the Rambam was limited by his understanding of nature. If you read the Rambam precisely, you'll see that he doesn't say that. The Rambam does not say that Chayim Nitzchim is the Neshama B'li Guf, that eternal life is so without a body, because bodies can't live forever. That's not his reason. The Rambam writes in the Bukhim, he disagrees with other philosophers that it's possible physical things like that. It's a whole chapter. The only place in the Rambam where you'll see the Rambam repeating himself. Every single example of Tanakh where something has a beginning and doesn't have an end, the Rambam says, philosophically, it's possible for a body to take that page. I think it's chapter 31, the second section, chapter 30, long chapter, and it's very uncharacteristically repetitive. The Rambam holds that Chayim Yitzchim is not in the guf, the eternal life is not in the body, because if you don't eat to eat, if you don't need to sleep, in order to get night, now we don't need a body. Not because it can't be. So I walked out of the class, so to speak, in the aura of the class, and I went to get myself a cup of water to get ready to daven, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand, the Rambam believed in creation. The Rambam insisted, this is a big fight with Aristotle, that creation is ex nihilo. There was no matter, and now there's matter. I'm asking you a dumb question. What's a bigger miracle? To make Pare's daughter's hand extend a few feet, or to create a world where there was no world? This he believes, and this he doesn't. Because he was too much of a naturalist. Where's your brain? If you believe that Hashem made the world out of nothing, he can do anything he wants. Yoina can sit 3 days in the whale of a fish of a whale and come back alive. Doesn't make any sense. Of course it doesn't make any sense. But if he can create a world with no world existing, he can put Yoina in a fish for 3 days. So why does the Rambam have his limitations about miracles? It's not about the Eibush, it's about Malachim, it's about his philosophical rules that he holds. Anyway, so the greatest expression of God is the creation event. The greatest miracle the Eibush ever performed was make the world. So it says in Bereshit, Parul, Akim, I read this morning in my preparing for Baruch Shalom, which I'm teaching you whatever it's going to be. This Nishan said, I think it was David Amenucha, at the first pasuk in the Chumash is describing creation to tell us that we believe that Hashem made the world after nothing, from nothing into something, and therefore he makes it every single second. One of our core beliefs. And he created every single second, he's mighty involved. And if he's mighty involved, he knows what's going on. And if he wants to make a miracle, he can make a miracle. He wants to split the seas, but he wants Bas Pare's hand to extend many feet so that she can pull Moshe Rabbeinu's little basket out of the river. He can do that too. Because that's a much smaller the miracle. So the Rebbe says, when you're reading the Sefer HaBris, Moshe wrote the Book of the Covenant and he read the Book of the Covenant. What did he write and say? Yiddishkeit had until that point. It's not complete. And if it's not complete, there's something wrong with the Gavis. Because in order for it to be complete, you got to have the whole book. But it certainly helped. This Book of the Covenant, which Moshe Rabbeinu wrote on Thursday evening, and Moshe Rabbeinu read when he converted the Jews on Friday morning, is not a complete conversion like we looked at the previous year, because they don't have all of the mitzvahs. But there's a lot of important stuff in there, including these incredibly important words. Hashem wants us to know how strong he is. Hashem wants us to know how strong he is, so we should know how much he's the master of the world. We have to know how much he's the master of the world to appreciate the extent to which our obligations are to him and his ability to manipulate the world as he wishes is. The Book of the Covenant may not be complete. The Book of the Covenant may not be sufficient for a full conversion, but it certainly goes quite far in moving us in the direction of accepting Torah mitzvah. You understand? Thank you for saying yes. I appreciate it very much.
The full version as well from the Mitzrayim that came there at Iraq, it was the same.
The Jews have to be converted.
Yeah, and also
Of course. Why not?
the same thing.
Yeah, of course. We learn halachas of Gaddis now from them.
From the-
Let's read that paragraph again, please. Page 141, second other one. That is given Matan Torah. This covenant is taking place before the Torah. Is therefore that the power of this covenant is oif on it's only on those things and through those things. The inyanim of the Eibush that together the Yidden Matan Torah. Those ideas that were given the Jewish people for the Torah was given. Now, that means the tools of the covenant are not enough, and accordingly, the covenant itself is not enough. Like we learned in the previous Sikha, you cannot accept all mitzvahs until you were given all mitzvahs. They would not be given all mitzvahs till the next day, so it's not till the next day that they can have a full conversion. but it's also not nothing. It's something. Why? Because included in what they were given already, that Moshe wrote and then read, is as follows. Ubefrat especially. Die welche those points which can stark and be them verbunden bris. Those things which can go a long way in strengthening the covenant. For example, I'm sorry. For example, that Moshe Hashem writes into the Torah how much muscle he has. Papa the Salem, yeah, before the finish. How strong the Eibishter is. How strong is the Eibishter? From Genesis. What is Genesis? The creation of the world after nothing. After nothing. So there's a lot in this covenant, although it's not a complete covenant, there's plenty in this covenant to make us appreciate what it means that we have a relationship with the Eibishter. When the bris is gewesen, from the beginning of the creation till now, when the bris is gewesen, this covenant acts as a hachon of Havdalah, preparation and introduction to Matan Torah, to the giving of the Torah, and the Torah Sadir. So this covenant is mighty strong. But this covenant is not a complete covenant. It's not like a full game. Okay? One more paragraph. The Pizeh movement. You with me?
Yeah.
Bottom of the first column, one for accordingly understand. Then the apostle is talked to us. That's not the Chumash. But Yichtek Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the book down. The Ksiva Fundam Sefer Abit, he wrote on the book of the covenant. Parenthesis. Their Sefer, this book, was it's verbunden with this which is attached to the covenant between Yidden and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He is invited in the Pasha and described later in the Pasha that Moshe Rabbeinu read it to them when he made them convert. The Gemeint late Rashi is in Rashi's opinion. Aber hat geschrieben kol divrei Hashem. He wrote down after all the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the Eibishter wrote them. Was eine Schein bis damals gesagt geworden für Yidden that already had been told to the Jewish people until that point. After the second count behind this means. Number one, from Genesis until the story of the giving of the Torah. When the mitzvahs, there's thousands, all of the mitzvahs, and again, I'm reading words into the Rashi. First of all, Sheva mitzvah. Second of all, the mitzvah that Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Amram gave them. And finally, the mitzvahs that were given in birth. So appreciate two things. Numero uno, this is not as good as the greatest after Matan Torah. But numero dos, it goes a long way in getting them. But he can see the fact that Hashem told Moshe to write it, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, and then the next day he read it to them all before the Torah would be given, is gewesen was done nicht believe it's not because later on Friday when the Jews are converted. Moshe is going to read it. For the writing it itself is given and this writing down the covenant and alone the covenant. The devil said it's Tashlim by Moshe Rabbeinu writing it down, but the Bakum and takes the take it, the oral word became firmer and stronger and more fixed. Because it had been written. So it's hard to get in and it adds more in the Jewish people's obligation, or verbunden in them, how they become tied up in it. So again, even though the covenant is not complete, it's very powerful. Writing it is very helpful. What it ever wants us to understand is the sound of a lawnmower, not irritating. When you can smell the grass. If it's not true, it's still interesting. I think it. When you smell the grass, the low moment comes sweet music. When you can't smell the grass,
Cross out that,
it's a blow, it's one leaf or snow. Maybe the grass, what do you? Listen, with the curtain drawn, it could be anything. Anyway, you could smell the grass, then it's a wonderful background noise. Getting under my skin. That ever wants us to understand that all of these ceremonies are important. He admits, and we'll see this more next week, of course, that these ceremonies are only preliminary. They're not the real thing. The real thing doesn't happen until Shabbos when the Eighth comes down the mountain and they get the whole title. These ceremonies are very, very important. And he wants us to understand further that these ceremonies, which are only preparatory, are very important, is two separate ceremonies. Ceremony number one, writing it down. Ceremony number two, reading it out loud. He says writing it down would have been powerful even if it wasn't written. Reading it to them and not writing it would have also been very, very powerful. Going both is two different things. By writing it in a book, and of course, like we decided before, it costs out of print and out of available. Wherever that Sefer Abris is, writing it down was alone a part of the covenant. Reading it to the Yidden afterward enhances the covenant further. And both of them are only preparation. This is what we got. Okay. Now, where are we headed next week? Let me say this to you now, and we'll stop. What the Rebbe is going to do is it's a philosophical idea. The Rebbe is going to say to us that one of the core ideas of Torah, philosophically, is that the Torah has only one point. And if you have to put a label on it, we'll say the one point is serve God. Smell the grass. Yeah. It was a 50-second retreat. You listening to me? When Hashem is going to give us the Torah is going to be one point. The one point is serving Hashem. Now, serving Hashem includes keeping Shabbos, keeping kosher. When need be, use the Baradum. You know what it includes? Believing in God, believing that Hashem created the world from nothing, and all kinds of other wonderful stuff that you learn from the stories. The stories of the Chumash and the mitzvahs of the Chumash are not two things. They're all saying the same thing. I'm going to give you a one-question test. What are they saying?
Serve God.
Serve God. Thank you for remembering. The stories of the Chumash and the mitzvahs of the Chumash are all speaking to one thing. Serve God. The Torah hasn't been given yet. All they got is a little piece of this and a little piece of this. But they consider two things. Isn't that strange? When they have only the stories from the beginning of the Chumash, and they have only a few mitzvahs, whatever number of few is, they're called two separate things. It's called advarim, it's called mishpatim. The words means the stories, and mishpatim means the laws. When the Torah is given, we're going to have more stories, more laws, it's going to become one Torah. Why? Because when you have it all, you have it on a higher level and it becomes a singularity. When you don't have it all, you have it on a lower level. So it's two separate things. So the fact that in the Chumash, there are two words, Dvarim and Mishpatim. Dvarim now means stories. Mishpatim now means mitzvahs. The fact that we divide up the Torah into two parts doesn't make the Torah more, it actually makes the Torah less. Or to say it in other words, it doesn't make the Torah deeper, it actually makes the Torah shallower. Because if and when we're going to get it all, we're not going to divide the Torah into Dvarim and Mishpatim. It's going to be one thing, Torah. All of this is written in Chumash with Rashi, in a few words in Parashat Mishpatim. The Jews are getting ready to get Nefesh Nevish. So number one, they get Dvarim and Mishpatim. Dvarim means Prisha V'Agbarim. Mishpatim means from Bereshis till Matan Torah and the Mitzvah. Then Moshe writes down the Dvarim and the Mishpatim. So now Dvarim means the story. Mishpatim means the laws. The next day he's going to read Sefer Abrit, what they call Dvarim and Mishpatim. When we're going to get the Torah, we're not going to call the Torah Dvarim and Mishpatim, we're going to call it Torah. Because more, or I should say all, makes it into a singularity. Less or apart makes it divided. This is where the Sikh is headed. Or to sort of finish the class the way I started. The Jews went through Gatus, went through conversion the day before they was given. That Gatus is not complete. It's only a stepping stone. The complete Gatus is not going to happen until they get the whole page. In the last Sikh, the Rebbe explained the limitations of their Gatus using one model. In this Sikh, we're going to explain the limitations of their Gatus using a different model. In the previous Sikh, the limitations of our Gatus was the fact that we couldn't accept all the mitzvahs. In this Sikh, the limitation of the Gatus is the fact that the stories of the Torah, the laws of the Torah are seen as two separate things. And I will see you in 7 days. How do you say in English 7 days? Okay, fortnight is 2 weeks. There's no fancy word for week, just week. Okay, I'll see you in a week. Thank you for coming and listening.
Thank you.
Kazak, yes.